wife owes money to Jackie Treehorn, that means you owe money to Jackie Treehorn.
Ever thus the deadbeats, Lebowski.
No, don't do that. Not on the rug, man.
See?
John Troop, the author of Anatomy of a Story, once called the inciting incident an event from outside that causes your hero to come up with a goal and take action. Today we're talking about inciting incidents, or inciting events, whatever you want to call them. We'll define inciting incidents, talk about what makes a good inciting incident, and we'll look at some examples. What is an inciting incident, though? An inciting incident or event is a story beat at the end of a story's exposition or setup, where we learn more about the characters in their everyday life. An inciting incident is an event that, when it occurs, totally disrupts the protagonist's ordinary life. This event cannot be reversed, at least not with considerable effort from the main character. In other words, the inciting incident is like shutting a door between your main character and their everyday life. But what makes a good inciting incident? Well, there are 5 essential elements that make for a good inciting event. Number 1, your inciting event needs to establish stakes. Number 2, you need to make it disruptive. Number 3, it needs to directly impact the protagonist. And number 4, it needs to create a story question. Number 5, it needs to start a conflict. So let's look at number 1, establishing stakes. Before a writer does anything, they need to establish what the main character has to lose or gain from the story's conflict. Your character needs to have something at stake. That could be their life, dignity, or maybe just their summer job. It doesn't matter how significant the stakes, what matters is that they are important to the character. On the flip side, a character may start their journey at the absolute lowest point in their life, with nothing to lose. This is a classic Cinderella story, where the main character has nothing to lose, but they have everything to gain. In this kind of story, the stakes are just as important as they would be for a protagonist who has everything to lose. Good or bad, the inciting incident threatens what is most fundamental to your protagonist, their status quo. Step 2, make it disruptive. Whatever the inciting incident is, it will disrupt the normal flow of the main character's life. The inciting incident should completely upset the order established in the first act. It turns your character's life upside down. This beat is where the protagonist's stakes, their status quo, comes under threat. This event isn't something the character can fix quickly. If so, there wouldn't be much of a story. And like I said earlier, the inciting event is something that shuts the hero out of their everyday life permanently. This event could be drastic or subtle. That doesn't really help much, I know, but that's just the nature of inciting incidents. To help you out though, let me give you some examples of what this completely disruptive event could look like. Maybe a wealthy family loses all of their money after one wrong business decision. Or a man meets his former girlfriend at a bar. Or a woman is hired at her dream job, but her boss is a terror. Or a man is visited by the ghost of his former business partner. Or a man pisses on another man's rug. It directly affects the protagonist. An inciting incident should directly affect the protagonist. An inciting incident should immediately push the main character out of their comfort zone. It might not be obvious, but the inciting event is often the worst thing that's ever happened to the hero of a story. Take, for instance, the inciting event of James Cameron's Titanic. In this movie, Rose and Jack are our protagonists. I don't remember their last names, and I don't feel like looking it up right now. The inciting event occurs when Jack, having never met Rose, saves her from jumping off the ship. The 2 teenagers set off on a passionate love affair, which seems like a positive event, but look at all the trouble that it causes both characters. Rose's possessive fiance tries to frame Jack for a crime he didn't commit, and Rose is forced to choose between a life of wealth and comfort or being with a man she loves, which, as everybody knows,
rich girls don't marry poor boys.
But that doesn't really matter. When the ship sinks and Jack dies because there's no room on that gigantic, buoyant piece of wood, is there Rose. All this trouble is set off when Rose has a chance meeting with Jack on the deck of a doomed ocean liner. Whether an inciting event is positive or negative from the viewpoint of your hero, like John Truby says, the hero has just gotten into the worst trouble of their life. Alright, the next step, and I forget which number we're on, you need to frame it around a story question. The inciting incident also introduces a story's central question. In other words, the thing that the audience will worry about. Story questions help build suspense and keep readers turning pages. That's because story questions are answered in the resolution of the story, usually. Will Jack and Rose end up together? No, Jack dies. Will Jay and Daisy end up together? No, Jay dies. Is there really a connection between these two stories, or am I just imagining things? A great example of an inciting incident that introduces a story question comes from the original Rocky film. When Apollo Creed offers Rocky a shot at the title, it poses a story question. Will Rocky, the scrappy underdog, take advantage of this unlikely opportunity? A true Cinderella story. Can he beat Creed and become the heavyweight champion, or will he embarrass himself on national television? Either way, the audience wants to know the answer to this question. Most stories need conflict though, and there are exceptions to this rule, but not many. So your inciting incident should start a conflict, and this is step something or other. I don't know, I'll put it on the screen. The inciting incident should create some dilemma for your protagonist, a challenge that they spend the majority of the story struggling to overcome. Good pre-writing is essential here. You'll want to know where your story is going before you create an inciting incident. So think about the first plot point in the context of your entire story's plot. You need to know what the conflict will be before you learn how to set it off, and it really wouldn't help to know how you're going to resolve that conflict either. Find a good story structure like the hero's journey or the 3-act structure to follow. And by the way, we did a whole video on the 3-act structure, which we'll link in the comments. But that's the last step I've got for inciting incidents. Before we go though, let's clear up some confusion between the inciting event and another story beat. So let's talk about inciting incidents versus cold opens or hooks. Sometimes a movie or book will start with a bang, a whole bunch of action that may or may not connect to the plot. You might be asking, is this the inciting incident? The answer is maybe, but probably not, only if it fundamentally changes the main character's life. Usually this is not an inciting event, but an action sequence called a cold open or a hook. An inciting incident can happen anywhere as long as it's in the first act of the narrative, but every writer needs to hook their reader or viewer early, and that is the job of a good cold open. For that reason, a cold open must occur at the beginning of a story. The job of a cold open is to grab the audience's attention and sometimes to foreshadow the story's conflict. Think of the pre-credit scenes of any James Bond movie. You know, the part before he goes in front of that little gun barrel and shoots it. There'll be action, gadgets, chase scenes, and explosions, all designed to thrill the audience. A cold open may or may not have anything to do with the story's plot, but it's a great way to get people's attention and get them interested. On the other hand, an inciting event will fundamentally change the main character's circumstances. The inciting event disrupts the character's life and sets off the story's conflict, and it usually takes place a little bit later in the story, about probably 1/4 of the way through. Okay, that's everything I have on inciting incidents or events or whatever you want to call them. But that's not all there is to this story beat. I also wrote an entire article on inciting incidents, which I'll link in the comment. As usual, like, subscribe if you like this kind of stuff, do all those things. And that's all I got, so later skaters.